You don't forget the first time innocence walks into a place built for violence. Most people think gyms like ours are where men go to learn how to hurt each other. They're not wrong, not entirely, but they miss the other half of the truth, that sometimes the cage is the safest place a broken man has ever been. That sometimes the discipline of combat is the only thing standing between a person and the chaos inside them. My name is Vincent Rojas. I've been training fighters for 23 years, running Ironside MMA for the last 15. We're not fancy. No air conditioning that works right, no mirrors on the walls, no smoothie bar in the lobby. What we have is a cage, some heavy bags held together with duct tape and prayer, and a group of men who show up every day because they don't know how else to survive. Most of them have records. Most of them have scars that don't show. All of them have found something here that the world didn't offer them anywhere else. The gym sits in a converted warehouse on the east side of Bakersfield, the part of town tourists don't see and locals pretend doesn't exist. Our neighbors are an auto body shop that never seems to have any customers, and a church that holds services in Spanish 3 times a week. The parking lot has more potholes than pavement. The sign out front just says Ironside in faded black letters. The MMA fell off 2 years ago, and nobody's gotten around to fixing it. It was a Thursday afternoon in late October when she walked in. The Santa Ana winds had been blowing for 3 days straight, hot and dry, making everyone irritable and on edge. Inside, we had the big fans running, trying to move the air around without much success. 8 guys on the mats working drills. Danny Castellanos hitting pads with that sharp snap that tells you a fighter's got real power. Marcus Webb in the corner, shadow boxing, his reflection moving across the windows like a ghost. The door opened and nobody paid attention. People wander in all the time, guys wanting to learn to fight, kids selling candy bars for their school, sometimes the homeless guy from down the block looking for water. It's only when I heard her voice that I turned around. "Hello, sir." She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Tiny thing, barely came up to my waist. Dark hair pulled back in 2 braids that were coming loose. Pink backpack with cartoon characters on it, the straps too long for her small shoulders. She wore a yellow dress that was clean but faded, the kind that's been washed 100 times. Her shoes were scuffed white sneakers, the laces tied in double knots the way careful mothers do. But it was her eyes that stopped me. Brown and big and old. Too old for a face that young. The kind of eyes that have seen things no child should see. "Hello yourself," I said, kneeling down so I wasn't towering over her. "You lost, sweetheart?" She shook her head solemnly. "No, sir. I came here on purpose." She looked around the gym with an expression that was more curious than scared, taking in the heavy bags, the cage, the sweating men who had all stopped to stare at this tiny visitor. "My mama told me to come here if I ever needed help." "Your mama knows this place?" The little girl nodded. Then she pointed at Danny Castellanos, who had stopped hitting pads and was walking toward us, his hands still wrapped, sweat dripping down his face. Specifically, she pointed at his left forearm, where a tattoo wound from his wrist to his elbow, a snake coiled around a sword, with the words Ironside Brotherhood written beneath it in Gothic script. "My mother has a tattoo just like yours," she said to Danny. "She said if I ever got in trouble, I should find the men with that picture on their arm. She said they would help me." Danny's face changed. Something moved behind his eyes, a recognition, a memory. He looked at me, then back at the girl. "What's your mama's name, little one?" he asked, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Elena," the girl said. "Elena Vega. I'm Sophia." Danny went still. Completely, utterly still, the way a man goes still when the past reaches up and grabs him by the throat. I watched his jaw tighten, watched his hands curl into fists at his sides, watched something pass across his face that I couldn't quite read. Pain, maybe, or regret, or something older and heavier than both. "Elena," he repeated, barely above a whisper, then louder. "I know your mother, Sophia. We were friends a long time ago. I didn't know the story then, wouldn't learn it until later, pieced together from conversations Danny didn't want to have, and memories he'd spent years trying to bury. But I knew enough to know that this little girl hadn't walked into our gym by accident, and that whatever came next was going to matter." "Where's your mama now, Sophia?" I asked. The little girl's face crumpled. Not all at once, but slowly, like watching a building start to collapse from the inside. Her bottom lip trembled, her eyes filled with tears. She was fighting hard not to let fall. She was trying to be brave, 6 years old, and trying to be brave in a room full of fighters. "The bad man has her," Sophia whispered. "He came back, and now she can't leave, and she told me to run. She told me to find the snake and sword and the men would help." She looked up at Danny, and in her eyes was a hope so desperate it hurt to see. "Will you help my mama, please?" The gym had gone completely silent. Every man had stopped what he was doing. They were all looking at this tiny girl in her yellow dress, and I could see it happening. That thing that happens when fighters see someone who can't protect themselves, someone small and scared and in need. It's not about violence, it's about something else, something most people don't understand about men who train to fight. The capacity to hurt and the instinct to protect aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing. Danny knelt down in front of Sophia, bringing himself to her level. He was a big man, 6'2" and 220, covered in tattoos, hands that had sent 3 men to the hospital in sanctioned bouts. But the way he looked at that little girl, you'd think he was made of glass. "I'm going to help your mama," he said, and his voice had a quality I'd never heard before. A promise, an oath, the kind of words men used to speak before battles. "I need you to tell me everything, okay? Where you live, where she is, who the bad man is. Can you do that for me, Sophia?" Sophia nodded, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "I can do that." The story came out in fragments, the way stories do when they come from children, out of order, circling back, filling in pieces as she remembered them. We sat her down in the back office with a bottle of water and a protein bar someone found in their gym bag. Marcus's girlfriend, Rosa, was called to come sit with her while we figured out what to do. Rosa worked at the elementary school down the street, was good with kids, had a gentle way about her that put people at ease. While Rosa kept Sophia calm, Danny told me the truth about Elena Vega. They'd grown up together in the same neighborhood, the rough part of Fresno where Danny had spent his childhood getting into fights, and his teenage years getting into worse. Elena was a year younger, lived 3 houses down. Her father was gone, and her mother worked double shifts, so Elena mostly raised herself. She and Danny had been inseparable from the time they were 10. Not romantic, not then, just 2 kids who recognized something in each other. A toughness, a refusal to break. "She was tougher than me," Danny said, staring at the wall like he could see the past projected there. "I was just angry. She was strong. There's a difference." When Danny was 19, he'd made a choice that changed everything. He'd gotten involved with some people, the kind of people who offer young men from bad neighborhoods a way to make quick money, the kind of people you don't walk away from easily. Elena had begged him not to, had told him it would end badly. He hadn't listened. "I did things," Danny said, his voice flat. "Things I'm not proud of, things that would have put me in prison if I'd gotten caught. Elena was the only one who knew, the only one I told. She could have turned me in, could have cut me out of her life. Instead, she came to see me every week, told me I was better than what I was doing, told me I could still get out." It took 2 years, but Danny did get out. Not cleanly, he still had scars from that exit, literal and otherwise, but he got out. Moved to Bakersfield, found Ironside, found me. Started training like his life depended on it, because in a way it did. The discipline of the gym replaced the chaos of the streets. The violence of the cage gave him somewhere to put all that rage. Slowly, piece by piece, he built himself into someone different. But he'd lost touch with Elena. Hadn't spoken to her in almost 7 years. "I thought she'd moved on," Danny said. "Thought she'd gotten out, built a life, forgotten about me. I didn't know..." He trailed off, his hands clenching and unclenching. "I didn't know she was still in trouble." From what Sophia had told us, we pieced together the situation. Elena had married a man named Cesar Molina about 4 years ago. At first, things had been okay. Then they weren't. The abuse started slowly, the way it always does. Words first, then isolation, then the first hit that was followed by apologies and promises that it would never happen again. It always happens again. Elena had tried to leave once, 2 years ago, had taken Sophia and gone to a shelter. Cesar had found them, had made threats, not against Elena, but against Sophia, had made it clear what would happen if Elena ever tried to leave again. So, she stayed, survived, protected her daughter as best she could while living with a monster. Then, 3 weeks ago, Cesar had gotten arrested. Assault charges, a bar fight that put another man in the hospital. Elena had thought it was finally over, had started making plans, quietly, carefully, to disappear while he was locked up. But last night, Cesar had made bail, had come home, had found the packed bags Elena hadn't hidden well enough. "Mama told me to run," Sophia said, when we asked her what happened. "She told me to go out the window and run as fast as I could and find the snake and sword. She said the men with that picture would keep me safe. Elena had gotten that tattoo 15 years ago. Same design as Danny's, same artist, same night. a symbol of a promise they'd made to each other when they were young and stupid and thought they could take on the world. Danny had forgotten about it. Elena never had. She remembered, Danny said, and there was something broken in his voice. All these years, and she remembered. What happened next is the part I've thought about the most in the years since. The part that keeps me up at night sometimes, not with regret, but with a kind of wonder at the way things can turn. Because in the movies, this is where the fighters would have stormed off to confront Caesar, would have broken down doors and delivered righteous violence. And I won't pretend the thought didn't cross our minds. Every man in that gym would have followed Danny into hell that night. But that's not what we did. We called the police first. I know that's not the dramatic answer, but it's the right one. We had Sophia, who was safe. We had her statement about what was happening at home. We had a man with a history of violence who was currently violating the conditions of his bail by threatening his wife. Detective Maria Sandoval from the Domestic Violence Unit had been to our gym before. Her nephew trained with us, and she'd come to watch him compete. She believed us. She moved fast. But we also knew that the police might not get there in time, that Cesar might hurt Elena before anyone with a badge could intervene, that sometimes the system moves too slow to save the people who need saving. So while Detective Sandoval mobilized her people, we mobilized ours. I didn't go. Someone had to stay with Sophia, and Rosa couldn't do it alone. The girl was terrified, needed familiar faces around her, needed to know she hadn't been abandoned. Marcus stayed too, along with 2 of the other guys. The rest followed Danny. They didn't go to fight. That's important. They went to witness, to be present, to make sure that whatever happened, there were eyes on it, that Caesar couldn't do anything in the shadows. Danny told me later what it was like. 6 men from Ironside MMA pulling up to a rundown apartment complex on the bad side of town, parking across the street, getting out of their cars and just standing there, watching, waiting. They didn't approach the building, didn't make threats, didn't even speak to each other. Just stood in the parking lot in the fading light. 6 fighters with hard faces and harder hands, making their presence known. Caesar saw them, had to have seen them from the window of Elena's apartment, had to have known what they represented. Not a threat exactly, but a promise, a consequence waiting to happen. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Detective Sandoval and 4 uniformed officers. They found Elena in the apartment with a split lip and bruises on her arms, but alive, conscious, able to walk out under her own power. Caesar was arrested without incident. Apparently, the fight had gone out of him somewhere between seeing 6 fighters in his parking lot and hearing the sirens approaching. Danny didn't speak to Elena that night, didn't think it was his place, didn't want to intrude on her worst moment. He just watched from across the parking lot as she was helped into an ambulance, as Cesar was put in the back of a squad car. Then he came back to the gym, walked straight to Sophia, and knelt down in front of her. "Your mama's okay," he said. "She's safe. The bad man can't hurt her anymore." Sophia threw her arms around Danny's neck and sobbed. Great, heaving sobs that shook her whole tiny body. All the fear and grief and relief pouring out at once. Danny held her, this enormous tattooed fighter, holding a 6-year-old girl in a yellow dress like she was made of something precious. I saw tears on his face. I pretended I didn't. That should be the end of the story. The happy ending, the rescue, the villain defeated, and the innocent saved. But real life doesn't wrap up that neatly, and the weeks that followed were harder than the night itself. Elena was released from the hospital the next morning. The injuries were minor, physically at least. The other kind of injuries don't show up on x-rays. She had nowhere to go. Her mother had passed away years ago. She had no siblings, no close friends. Caesar had made sure of that, had isolated her from everyone who might have helped. The shelter system was overwhelmed, beds full, waiting lists long. It was Marcus's girlfriend Rosa who suggested the solution. Her aunt had a rental property, a small house on the outskirts of town that had been sitting empty for months. The aunt was willing to let Elena stay there, rent-free for the first 3 months while she got back on her feet. Getting Elena to accept help was harder than finding the help in the first place. She'd been hurt too many times, betrayed too often. Trusting people didn't come easy anymore, if it ever had. Danny was the one who finally convinced her, not through any great speech, but simply by showing up. Every day, just to check in, to see if she needed anything, to remind her that she wasn't alone. "You don't owe me anything," Elena told him, about 2 weeks after that first night. They were sitting on the porch of her new place, Sophia playing in the small yard. "We were kids, Danny. That was a lifetime ago." "You came to see me every week," Danny replied. When I was at my worst, when anyone else would have given up on me. You told me I could be better. You were right. You did the work. You changed yourself. Because you believed I could. Danny looked at her, and I wasn't there for this part, but he told me about it later. Told me he'd never said anything harder in his life. Let me believe in you now. Let me help. Not because I owe you, because you're worth helping. Because Sophia's worth it. Because you deserve a chance to be happy. Elena cried. The kind of crying that doesn't stop easily, that comes from a place so deep you forgot it was there. And when she was done, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The weeks turned into months. Cesar was denied bail after violating it the first time, then convicted on the assault charges from the bar fight and the domestic violence charges from that night. He got 6 years. Not enough. It's never enough. But enough time for Elena and Sophia to build a new life without constantly looking over their shoulders. Elena got a job working the front desk at a dental office. The hours were regular, the work was steady, and the dentist was an older woman who understood Elena's situation and worked around her schedule when Sophia had school events or doctor's appointments. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and Elena took pride in doing it well. Sophia started at a new school, one with better test scores, and a playground that didn't have broken glass in the corners. She made friends slowly. She was cautious, like her mother, didn't trust easily. But by Christmas, she had a best friend named Maria and was talking about wanting to try gymnastics. And Elena started training at Ironside. That surprised all of us. She showed up one evening about 3 months after that first night, Sophia in tow, and asked if we offered self-defense classes. We did, sort of. Rosa taught a women's class on Saturday mornings, basic stuff, awareness and escape techniques. Elena signed up. Then she signed up for the beginners, M&SE class. Then she started staying after to hit the heavy bags. I spent years feeling helpless, she told me once, when I asked why she kept coming. I don't ever want to feel that way again. I understood. We all did. The gym has always been full of people running from something, towards something, trying to find a version of themselves that feels strong enough to survive. Elena was no different, and watching her transform over those months, watching the fear leave her eyes, watching her shoulders straighten, watching her move through the world like someone who belonged in it, that was something special. Danny kept his distance mostly. Didn't want to pressure her, didn't want to make things complicated. But you could see the way they looked at each other when they thought nobody was watching. Old friends reconnecting, something deeper maybe, something that had been waiting a long time to bloom. A year and a half after that February night, Danny fought for a regional title. He'd been working toward it for years, climbing the ranks, beating everyone they put in front of him. This was his shot, a chance to prove he was one of the best in the state, maybe in the region. The kind of validation that matters when you've spent your whole life being told you're nothing. Elena was there, front row with Sophia beside her, both of them wearing Ironside t-shirts. The gym had come out in force. Everyone who could get off work, everyone who could afford the tickets, packed into a casino ballroom that smelled like beer and sweat and anticipation. The fight was brutal. Danny's opponent was a wrestler from Sacramento, grinding and relentless. The kind of fighter who wears you down over 3 rounds and makes you question why you ever thought this was a good idea. Danny lost the first round. Lost the second round too, barely. The judges' scorecards probably split. Going into the third, he needed a finish to win. I was working his corner that night. Had been cutting for him for 8 years by then. Knew his face better than my own. Knew every way he could bleed and how to stop it. Between rounds, I looked into his eyes and saw something I'd seen before. Doubt. The kind that creeps in when you're exhausted, when you're hurt, when the voice in your head starts telling you that you were never good enough anyway. Look at me, I said, gripping his jaw, making him focus. You didn't come this far to quit. You didn't survive everything you survived to lose here. You hear me? You are not that kid anymore. You're a fighter. You're a champion. Now go out there and prove it. Danny nodded. Then he looked past me, into the crowd, and found Elena's face. She was standing, one hand pressed to her heart, the other holding Sophia's hand. She didn't say anything, didn't have to, just looked at him the way she'd looked at him 20 years ago, when they were kids making promises they didn't know if they could keep. The third round was 3 minutes of hell. Danny got taken down twice, fought back to his feet twice, refused to stay on the ground where his opponent wanted him. With 30 seconds left, he caught the wrestler with an uppercut that landed clean, dropped him to a knee. Danny swarmed. Left hook, right hook, another uppercut. The wrestler covering up, the referee moving closer, watching for the moment when defense became survival, became danger. The stoppage came with 11 seconds left. TKO. Danny Castellanos, regional middleweight champion. The crowd erupted. Danny fell to his knees in the center of the cage, hands raised, tears streaming down his face. Not from the pain, though there was plenty of that, his right eye swelling shut, blood from a cut on his forehead, but from something else. Release. Redemption. The proof that he was more than his past. When they opened the cage, Elena was the first one through. She pushed past the cornerman, past the officials, and threw her arms around Danny's neck. He held her like he'd held Sophia that night in the gym, like she was something precious and fragile and worth protecting. "You did it," Elena whispered, loud enough for me to hear. "I knew you would." "I had someone to fight for," Danny said. Sophia squeezed through the crowd a moment later, and Danny lifted her onto his shoulders. This little girl who had walked into our gym 18 months ago, terrified and desperate, looking for the snake and sword her mother had promised would save her. Now she was sitting on the shoulders of a champion, laughing, her hands raised in victory. "We did it, Danny!" she shouted. "We won!" Danny laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in years. "Yeah, mija," he said. "We won. It's been 4 years since that night. I don't run Ironside anymore. Retired last spring, handed the gym over to Marcus, who's better at the business stuff than I ever was. But I still come by, still tape hands, still work corners, still sit in the back office after hours remembering all the fighters who've come through these doors." Danny and Elena got married 2 years ago. Small ceremony, backyard of their house, just family and gym people. Sophia was the flower girl. She's 10 now, tall for her age, with her mother's eyes and her stepfather's stubborn streak. She started training last year, not fighting, not yet, just the basics. Learning to be strong, learning that she never has to feel helpless. Danny still fights, though he's talking about retiring soon. 35 is old for this sport, and his body's starting to tell him what his brain doesn't want to hear. But he's got the gym now, helping Marcus run things, coaching the next generation. He's good at it, patient, sees something in broken people, the way Carlos Ortega once saw something in him. Elena teaches the women's self-defense class on Saturday mornings, started as a student, became an assistant, eventually took over when Rosa moved away. She's not the same woman who walked into that hospital 4 years ago, battered and afraid. She's something harder now, something tempered. The fear never quite goes away. I've learned that, watching people rebuild, but it gets smaller, gets manageable, gets quiet enough that you can live around it. The tattoo is still there, on both their arms. The snake and sword, the words, Ironside Brotherhood, underneath. A promise made when they were young and stupid, kept through decades of distance and pain. Sometimes the old bonds are the ones that matter most. I think about that night a lot. The night a little girl in a yellow dress walked into our gym and changed everything. The way innocence and violence can exist in the same space, can need each other sometimes. The way men who are trained to hurt can also be trained to protect. The way the cage isn't just about fighting, it's about finding out who you really are when everything else is stripped away. Sophia asked me once why I became a cutman, why I spent my life in gyms, patching up fighters, sending them back into battles that would only hurt them again. It's a fair question. I've asked it myself, on the hard nights. Because somebody has to, I told her. Because fighters need people who can put them back together. And because sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to see something beautiful happen in a place nobody expects it. She thought about that for a while. Then she nodded, the way kids do when they're filing something away for later. "I want to help people too," she said, "when I grow up." "You already do, mija. You already do." The gym is quiet now. It's late, past midnight. The lights turn low. The heavy bags hang still. The mats swept clean. The cage door locked. In a few hours, the morning crew will show up, and the whole thing will start again. The sweat, the struggle, the small victories and hard losses that make up a life spent fighting. But for now, it's just me and the silence and the memories. The ghosts of every fighter who's ever walked through those doors. The echoes of every promise made and kept. The knowledge that somewhere out there, a little girl who once ran to us crying now sleeps safe in her bed, dreaming of the person she'll become. You don't forget the sounds of a gym at night, the way silence sits heavy between the hanging bags, the distant drip of something that never quite stops, the heartbeat of a place that saves people, one broken soul at a time. This is Ironside. This is home. And as long as there are people who need saving, we'll be here, waiting, ready. The door is always open.